Let's get started. Welcome to another lecture. Today we examine the FIFA World Cup, a subject where history, governance, culture, and a rather shiny 18-carat trophy intersect. I am Alexei. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I'm Priyanka. I've been looking forward to this one. The World Cup is one of those things everyone knows a little about, but the details get really interesting when you slow down and look closely.
Let's begin with the foundations. In everyday terms, the FIFA World Cup is the roughly month-long tournament when men's national teams from around the world compete until one remains. It is, if you will, the summit of international football. Every 4 years after a very long and competitive build-up, the best meet to decide a champion, and billions watch because the sport belongs to nearly everyone.
So basically, it's the top-level men's national tournament in football. Teams qualify over several years, then there's a final event in one or more host countries, and someone lifts the trophy. That's the simple picture, right?
Scientifically, or rather institutionally, we define it as a FIFA-administered competition among senior men's national teams, featuring a global qualification phase across confederations, followed by a final tournament that, from 2026 onward, includes 48 qualified teams. Host nation or nations qualify automatically. The tournament comprises a group phase and knockouts, and it is staged quadrennially, with the only cancellations occurring during the Second World War.
And the stakes today are enormous. Culturally, it's like a shared calendar event for much of the world. Economically, the ripple effects touch broadcasters, tourism, and infrastructure. And socially, we see moments of unity across borders, even if for 90 minutes at a time. It's also shaped by earlier constraints, like amateurism rules and the basic cost and time of intercontinental travel in the 1930s.
Indeed, it's crucial to understand that early participation patterns were not purely about desire or quality, but about steamships, budgets, and calendars. Amateurism at the Olympics constrained who could play, and long sea voyages constrained who could arrive. Over time, professionalism, aviation, and a standardized qualification system reshaped access and gradually the competitive map. Some basic facts to anchor us. The World Cup is, by credible measures, the most watched sporting event globally. FIFA estimated about 3.6 billion watched some part of 2018, and around 5 billion engaged with the 2022 tournament. About 1.5 billion saw the 2022 final. Methodologies vary, of course, and cumulative versus unique viewers complicate comparisons, but the magnitude remains unambiguous.
And, maybe my favorite simple fact, Brazil is the only national team to have played in every World Cup. Also, only 8 countries have ever won it, all from Europe or South America. Brazil leads with 5, Germany and Italy 4, Argentina 3, France and Uruguay 2 each, and England and Spain 1 each.
Let's start with the history. In May 1928, FIFA decided to create a world championship outside the Olympics. 2 years later, Uruguay hosted the inaugural World Cup in July 1930. The first match day in July 1930 produced the first goal in tournament history by Lucien Laurent of France. The final in July 1930 saw Uruguay defeat Argentina 4-2 before a vast crowd at Estadio Centenario. The 1942 and 1946 editions were cancelled due to the war and its aftermath, and the dramatic 1950 return culminated in the Maracanazo, with Uruguay upsetting Brazil in Rio de Janeiro. Over time, we observe expansions to 24 teams in 1982, to 32 in 1998, and to 48 from 2026, each expansion widening access while preserving a knockout climax. As for the trophy lineage, the Jules Rimet Trophy was awarded from 1930 to 1970. Brazil retained it after their third win. It was stolen in 1983 and has never been recovered. The current 18-karat gold trophy, designed by Silvio Gazzaniga, entered service in 1974, and winners now receive a gold-plated replica while FIFA retains the original.
Isn't it interesting how details like the champion's badge also create small cultural markers? The reigning champion wears that emblem until the next title is decided. Little signals travel far on television.
Quite. Symbols scale remarkably well on broadcast. They compress history into a patch of embroidery. A brief personal note. I became especially absorbed by the governance side when in 2015, a sweeping US-led corruption probe led to arrests and suspensions, and even delayed the 2026 bidding process. We, as scholars of institutions, pay attention when rules, incentives, and transparency collide so visibly. That episode sharpened my interest in how the World Cup is made, not only how it is played. And this brings us to three questions that will shape the rest of our discussion.
I think the three questions I'm hearing are, first, how did the World Cup evolve from its Olympic roots? Second, the counterfactual about a 40-team format. And third, the ongoing balance between inclusivity and competitive integrity. That sounds right.
Yes. Question 1. Historically, the World Cup emerged because Olympic football, while vital, was constrained by amateurism and governance trade-offs. In 1908 and 1912, Olympic football existed but did not yet capture a fully global professional standard. By 1924 and 1928, the Olympic tournaments were effectively open, and Uruguay's triumphs there stunned European observers and validated a professional world championship vision. Jules Rimet and colleagues then pursued a separate FIFA-run event, decided in 1928, that could welcome professionals, standardize eligibility, and remove the IOC's amateur constraints. The 1930 tournament realized that vision. Participation was limited by distance and cost, but the institutional template was set.
I'm curious about how much the Olympics still mattered to legitimacy. Like, were those 1924 and 1928 wins just precursors, or are they actually part of the championship story that FIFA recognizes in practice?
It is worth noting that those were open tournaments during FIFA's professional era. Consequently, Uruguay counts them in the tradition of world titles, which explains the 4 stars appearing above their crest. This linkage reflects a continuum. Olympic football catalyzed the appetite and proved the concept, and the World Cup then institutionalized it under FIFA's sole governance, decoupled from IOC amateurism. In simpler terms, the Olympics lit the torch. The World Cup built the stadium around it.
That makes sense. Building on that, can we maybe now look at the counterfactual? If the tournament had expanded to 40 teams instead of 48, how different would the map look, especially for Africa, Asia, and CONCACAF?
Speaking of alternative histories, in 2013, Michel Platini proposed a 40-team World Cup. Later, in January 2017, FIFA confirmed a larger expansion to 48 teams from 2026. The essential trade-off is straightforward. More teams increase representation, especially from underrepresented confederations. But they also increase logistical complexity and average variance in team quality. With 40, additional berths would have existed, but fewer than in a 48-team system. Politically, that would offer less relief to regions that argued their participation base had outgrown their finals allocation. With 48, we can infer broader access and a larger match inventory. The 2026 three-nation hosting model reflects how organizers now distribute that load geographically. Competitive integrity in either scenario hinges on seeding, draw design, and the incentives embedded in group structures.
So, what about the impact on smaller confederations? Like, practically, do we see more first time finalists? And does that translate into better long term competitiveness? Or just a bigger stage for the same endgame dominated by Europe and South America?
To elaborate, expanded formats predictably increase first-time finalists from Africa, Asia, and CONCACAF. That is, inclusivity in access improves. However, historically, late-stage dominance remains concentrated in Europe and South America. Entire quarterfinal lineups in several editions, including 1994, 1998, 2006, and 2018, came exclusively from those two regions. Thus, representation and competitive parity are related but not identical. The former responds quickly to policy. The latter evolves more slowly via investment, coaching, youth development, and continuous top-level exposure that expansions can help catalyze but do not guarantee.
So, yeah, moving on to the third question. How do we balance inclusivity with competitive integrity now? And what levers actually work beyond just adding more spots?
Let's transition to another aspect. Several live debates illustrate the tension. The proposed biennial World Cup, floated publicly in 2021 and supported by some federations, met firm opposition from UEFA and CONMEBOL on grounds of calendar congestion, player welfare, and prestige dilution. That debate, whether or not it resurfaces, clarifies how value is preserved by scarcity and by coherent scheduling across confederations. Separately, discontinuing the Confederations Cup in favor of an expanded Club World Cup signals a reweighting toward elite club content, which affects how national team windows are protected. Integrity, in the World Cup context, emerges from clear qualification pathways, fair seeding, robust officiating standards, and formats that minimize perverse incentives while maximizing the likelihood that the best teams advance without eliminating the possibility of meaningful upsets.
If I may suggest a practical angle, what solutions would you put on a whiteboard? Like 3 or 4 ideas we could actually test or implement.
4 quick levers. First, seeding transparency with stable, predictable ranking methodologies reduces draw volatility unrelated to merit. Second, targeted intercontinental playoffs can act as elastic buffers, allowing fine-grained adjustments to confederation allocations without full format overhauls. Third, calendar safeguards, protected rest windows, fewer friendlies of low utility, and coordinated continental scheduling directly support player welfare, which underwrites quality. Fourth, invest in data-driven format modeling. Simulate how different group and knockout architectures affect advancement probabilities for each confederation, and publish the results so stakeholders can debate with evidence rather than intuition.
And on the research side, we probably need better measurement of viewership too. Reconciling cumulative audience numbers with unique viewers and digital engagement. Otherwise, we argue past each other about scale without a shared denominator.
Agreed. Divergent methodologies have produced divergent totals. Clarifying those would sharpen how we value formats and windows. It's important to understand that better data does not make the World Cup larger, but it can make its arguments cleaner. To summarize, the FIFA World Cup is the global men's football championship, born from Olympic roots but freed from amateur constraints, expanded over decades from a compact invitational to a planetary tournament. We considered a counterfactual 40-team path against the adopted 48-team model, and found that representation responds faster than parity. And we outlined ways to balance inclusivity with integrity through seeding clarity, playoff elasticity, calendar design, and transparent modeling.
And maybe as homework for listeners, look at the FIFA Women's World Cup too. Its growth since 1991 shows another pathway for expanding access while building competitive ecosystems. So, I guess that kind of sums it up.
This then completes our present analysis. Thank you for listening to another lecture. Until next time.
Thank you, Professor.